I arrived here, even though we were a growing town, a growing parish, there was a sense of just malaise about us. And so, we just started doing stuff. And so 3 years later, I thought, well, this is probably a good time for us to step back a little bit and figure out what it is that we are about and to plan for how it is that we move forward. And so we've been doing that for the last year or so, and intensively since about April. And so the purpose of this little presentation is to give you an idea of what it is that we have charted for ourselves so that we'll move forward in the next 3 years. I'm hoping to give you some very quick background on it and introduce you our mission vision statement for the parish so that as you converse with your colleagues, as you converse with your students, and as you converse with the parents, hopefully they will be talking to you about it and that you'll be talking to them about it. Okay? And so, as you recall, when we read that book last fall, right, Forming Intentional Disciples, right, the number one reason 71% of those surveyed leave the church because they feel that their spiritual needs are not being met. Right? And so the challenge for us is, well, what do we do about this? Current snapshot, only 5% of the parishes in the United States are growing. And so we want to dig in and figure out what it is that they're doing and how do we learn from them. Because I am not very creative. I'm really good at stealing people's ideas and copying it and making it our own, because I don't believe that in reinventing the wheel. And so this is our response. Some of you participated in the GROW process last year for strategic planning. Another aspect of that was we did some research and we came across this amazing parish seminar. It's a bunch of business people who are really in love with the church. And so they got together and said, what can we do to help the Catholic Church here in the United States? And so they decided, the best way that we can help the church in the United States is to use our business background to help our parishes function well. Because they said, that's where the rubber really hits the road, is all the stuff that we do within our parish. So we can help our parish to become viable and exciting places. That's where we should concentrate our energy. Okay? And so as part of that, they identify then 7 traits of parishes that function well and parishes that are growing. And so as part of that process, we put together a group, we call it an exploratory group. So there were 5 of us, consisting of staff, lay leadership, and myself that went out to Denver to attend. A 2-day seminar out there. And, it kind of opened our eyes to different ways of doing things and broadened our horizon, right? That indeed there are people who are doing great work out there, and what can we do to bring that great work here? And so a little bit of history of where we are and how we got here. That when I arrived here, my shelf on my office were full of 3-ring binders of all these different companies and all these different initiatives that we started. And we started it, a lot of them. But that's all. That's all we did, was we started it. Okay? And so we went back and started digging back through what we did. And probably the most substantial thing that we did was in 2011. Jay Steele, one of our parishioners here, led us in a strategic positioning model. Okay? And this is what the model looked like. What we were interested in was right here, that all of our past effort kind of concentrated here, and it never got down to here. And so we thought, okay, let's go back and let's take a look at what's happening. Okay? Because we figure we're faith community, that prayer is really important. And then we kind of have to figure out what it is that we find ourselves in the situation that we're in. What are some mandates that we have? And just kind of get a clear understanding of where we sit right now. And so that's what we did. We went back to look at the work that was done in 2011. And we found that we kind of stopped midway. Then in 2014, as part of our ability to ask for money in our capital campaign, the Archdiocese required that we undergo this GROW process, this strategic planning process. And as part of that, some of you were involved, much of the staff were involved, a bunch of lay leadership was involved. It got us to, once again, our environmental scan. But the process. And so we need to put our faith into action. And we are already doing it in this building, right? And so we're already responding to that. Then we went back then. Well, this is what we're about. How is it that those parishes that are growing, what are the similarities that they have in mind? Right? So these are the 7 traits that these successful parishes have in mind. The reliance on prayer, a good team that's kind of pushing this effort forward, a clear vision. They know who they are about. They know and they have discerned what it is that God has planned for them in that particular time, in that particular place. Right? The Sunday experience. When they talk about the Sunday experience, they're talking about that family or that parishioner from the moment that they get into their car to leave their house until they get out of their car again in the driveway. Right? That in order to fundamentally understand that, we have to understand and improve on what happens between when they drive out of their driveway and when they drive back in. Compelling formation, right? That we worship an infinitely merciful and perfect God. And that's a lifelong endeavor then to get to know and learn more about this God that we worship. Right? And so how do we go about making that attractive to people so that they would want to be interested in knowing this infinite God that we worship? Small group discipleship. Right? That the study tells me that the average priest can minister effectively to about 220 people. I don't believe it. Right? I don't think I can be that effective to that many people. Right? And so it's about ministering to each other. Right? That once again, it's about worshiping, and it's about growing in faith, growing in holiness, holding each other accountable. And we do that most effectively in small group. And then also, because we have been received so much that we are called to give. Right? We are called to have that missionary zeal. And so what does that look like for us at this particular time, in this particular place? So how do we bring about this vision to reality? Because up until this point, this has always been the stumbling block for us in this strategic planning for us. And admittedly, this is the most difficult part of it, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to promote the best way to bring us and to ask those important questions. Are the things that we're doing merely maintaining us? Are those questions that we're asking merely to maintain us as a community? Are we asking the right questions? See, because in order for us to have that broader vision, right, that broader horizon, we need to ask different questions, right? Because if you're just going to maintain yourself, you ask different questions than you are one who is reaching out, right? So fundamentally, that's what we have to shift our minds around, right? So how do we prepare ourselves to reach out? So part of, and this will be driven by and large, some among our staff, our school, our lay leaders of our parish, right? That we want to have a process in place. And Bruce, and you have been living this the last year or so with your implementation. So we're adapting the implementation plan that you have used for the STEM, and we're adapting that for the parish as a whole. So we're asking questions, where do we want to go, and how do we go about getting there? And so we'll be asking that over and over again. In light of our vision, in light of our mission statement, where is it that we want to go, and how do we go about getting there? Okay? And so you will hopefully hear a lot more about that. But I wanted to give you a brief overview of where it is. And I'm really excited because I think it's an exciting time for this community, for this school, for this parish, right? We're getting a lot of people coming in. We're getting a lot of people looking at us. But ultimately, I'm trying to, like I said last year when we looked at that Forming Intentional Disciple book, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to animate and be open to the Holy Spirit coming in our midst, right? Because ultimately, I'm a short-termer here, right? Tomorrow the Archbishop can call me up and say, no, I need you in Timbuktu, right? Because it will be the staff and the lay leadership that will be really driving this effort, right? I'm merely opening our vision and opening the way for us to possibly, that this might be the vehicle for us to get there. Okay. Questions, comments that I might answer for you?
Some of those weaknesses you had on a previous slide, are you going to have like specific action plans for us to do to address those?
We're hoping, right? We're hoping through this process here that we will begin to address that.
Like, so I just are those like imminently coming, like, or just should we just keep our eye out?
Well, the one that we'll begin tackling this month is to get our staff and to get our leadership to react to the vision and mission statement. Right? Do you buy into our vision? Do you understand our vision? And how will you help us to communicate that vision out to the rest of the community? How do we enter into conversation with one another about about our vision and mission? But what we intend is to work our way from here down, right? And so these will be the 7 traits that we will really be pushing for, right? So that's where we're beginning.
Okay.
Is to engage people in the vision and mission. Do you agree with that? How will you help us get that out so that people understand what we're about? And then we'll be working our way, understanding the reliance on prayer, because we can't do anything without prayer, right? So how do we as educators teach our children the habit of prayer? How do we ask them to pray for, our efforts here? So the implementation, like I said, we'll use the STEM process, but these are the 7 traits that we will be really driving and pushing for.
I was just gonna share something about the prayer part. Last weekend, I was in Lake City, and their prayer, she's kind of trying to do the same things, and so our parish always prays after Mass, and you do it on your own. They actually have started doing it before, and so like the commentator will say like, we're praying for this, and then they all say the Our Father out loud together, and then they all say the Glory Be together. It just seemed more like a community other than like after Mass. I feel like sometimes people just pray really fast and then let's get out of here, and it was just kind of a cool feeling that it was all being done together. So that was a neat thing that I saw too.
Oh, yeah, I don't even know that everybody knows that you're supposed to do the Our Father, Hail Mary, and Glory Be.
That's
I
why
think
we
some
rotated in the bulletin.
But are people reading that and seeing that? I don't know.
And when I go with, I help Father when they welcome new parishioners, and then I give them a tour of the school and the church, and then I always tell them that, and then I say, "Do you see something different at the end of Mass here?" And they go, "Yeah, what is that?" And so when I tell them, they feel like they're really in on something. So I try to do that.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments, please?
With our Maggie leaving and Carla leaving too, with our faith formation evening and weekend, will that change from what we see now, or is that part of this the whole plan, and do we see a vision there?
We're going to keep our curriculum. We're going to keep our curriculum. It's an opportunity for us to kind of re-examine that whole process. And so part of it, what I'm toying with is the understanding for us that faith for life, right? That it's faith for life, that we have, from the time that we welcome them in at baptism, even before that, until we bury them, that we are calling them to conversion, and we're calling them to holiness, and we're calling them into relationship